So again, my name is Kayla. Gotta accept the recording. And I just recently graduated from UCLA as a political science major and a public affairs minor. I loved learning about those at UCLA. So like I hope that all of you are also excited to continue your learning like at a four-year university. I thought that was really fun. Um, and my life as a recent alumni, or I'll talk about my life a little bit as a student, just because it was only like a few months ago. Um, but besides class, I had kind of a lot of other responsibilities too. Um, I okay, I'm trying to like form how to list off everything, but I had like a lot of family responsibilities and I know a lot of transfers. Some of the reasons why we chose the transfer pathway was because of responsibilities at home. So that was a big toll on me, or not a toll, but that was a big factor in my decision. And that continues because your family doesn't leave you. So I had to take that into consideration a lot as a student. um, I also had like to work a lot too because I was financially independent. So I always had a job on campus, whether it was something that was like small and stipended or like an actual student worker job. I don't know. I'm hoping that like a lot of you went to your new student session, but I was a new student advisor 2 years in a row now. So I did it last year when I was going on from junior to senior year, and then I did it again this year, going from senior year to like graduated. So that was like one of my other biggest outlet on campus. I really liked helping incoming students just because my experience was a little rocky. Not gonna lie, like it was rough in the beginning, and I didn't want other students to feel that way. So I wanted to help as much as I can to give just my advice and let new students know that it's okay if you hit a bump on the road because that's part of your journey. It's part of figuring things out as you're transitioning. But if I could let you know that there's a bump ahead, like I'm going to do that. So I really enjoy talking to new students and just making sure that they feel secured in where they are in their life and also just comfortable with this new transition. Um, and like in addition to just outside of classes and academics, um, I only had truly like 1 year of the UCLA experience because I only had 1 year in person, whereas my first year when I transferred in, it was completely online. And I really tried to make up for that 1 year by like meeting up with my friends that I made over online, seeing them in person, going out with them a lot. Like I have this one group of friends, or my main group of friends, they all live together. So we call it like the LJPV household. So just going over to their house whenever, we all knew each other from like different aspects. Some was from student government, some was from like when I was working as a new student advisor. And we all like suddenly just meshed together, and it was a great friend group. And those are just like some of my highlights. It wasn't about what we particularly did, but it's just how much time we spent together. And I really just like spending any time with my friends. It doesn't have to be school related. It can be like we could be studying together, but I just really valued having that in-person time because I missed out on that a lot. Um, but like going into, I guess, like my graduate life, this kind of contributes because I felt like I missed out a lot in my junior year. So I tried to make up a lot in my senior year by applying to different things too, and kind of rushing what I needed to do right after graduation. Um, I was always someone with a plan. And during this last year, I realized that I could just throw my plan out. Like I don't have to follow the plan. But I had thought out everything of what I was going to do after I graduated. So I was going to get into this fellowship that was focused in public affairs. And I was going to live like in a different part of the States. And then after that, I'll get like a full-time job from that fellowship, because that's usually like the pathway, specifically in that fellowship. Like if you do really well, then you get a full-time offer. Um, but some things happened. I had other responsibilities to take care of, which is okay. Like that's why life kind of throws you curveballs. It's to test what you really want or what you want at the moment. And at that moment, I didn't really want that fellowship. Um, I did get like a few offers, but I thought ultimately it was not the best decision for me right now, in addition to my responsibilities at home, to take that offer, because I really missed my family. Oh, I'm also from SF. Um, I felt like I should have said that in the beginning, but I'm from SF, and even though it's not like that far away, like it's an hour plane ride, it's a 5-6 hour drive. It was a distance for me because I didn't always have the time to see them. Um, so like losing that time with my family too, it did something to me that I did not expect, which it made me miss them a lot. And I realized that there are just some things that I kind of forgot about at home that I needed to be more like accounted for. So even though I really wanted that fellowship like earlier in the year, um, at the time that I got like the offers, I realized it wasn't for me. And like a little bit around this time too, I was starting my work back up as a new student advisor. And being at NSA really reminded me how much I really liked counseling. I did it in my CC a little bit, just like as a peer advisor. I transferred from Diablo Valley College up in the Bay, and I was a student ambassador. So I always talk to a lot of students, and I love that. Like I truly love talking to students and just hearing them out. I get so excited for them to see like where they're coming from, and I know where they're gonna go because it's gonna be like such great places. But because of that, I kind of had a change in my career plans, which I want to go into higher education right now, like as of right now, because it's okay if things change. Like I have literally 30 other plans in my head of things that I want to do in my life. Some of them related to my major, which is poli-sci. Like I originally wanted to be in local government. Others are completely not related to my major. Like I want to be a teacher. Um, so it's just a lot of different plans, and it's okay to test all of them out or to do all of them. You don't have to restrict yourself on just one path. I feel like a lot of people try to tell us that, saying that there's like one road for us, but no, there's a lot of different roads that you could take, and you'll end up in the same place because it's you at the end of the day. But you could just figure out how you want to go there. And right now for me, I want to go down the academic counselor path in higher education, because I really valued my advisor at UCLA. He was very understanding, and he asked more than just academics. Like, I don't know how to describe it. And I'm so sad that he left. Oh, he went to the other school. But he was just like perfect at asking the right follow-up questions, because I could say something was wrong in my classes, but then he was like, but what else is happening? Like, what else aren't you telling me? But he'll say it like nicer. But yeah, he was just really great at understanding and really trying to know you. And I try to do that too. When I was at NSA, I remembered most of my students. I remembered their stories. I want to make sure that they know I'm listening. So I want to continue that and do that for other students too in other places. Like UCLA is already a great university with great faculty and staff. And if I could do that, or if I could take what I learned here to other schools, like it would just, I'll just be passing along like what I learned from UCLA. But yeah, that's kind of me right now. I have a few prospects of like jobs, but I don't want to say it yet because I'm still deciding between a few. Like I don't like jinxing myself. So yeah, but in the end, it really doesn't like matter how many different times you change your mind, or like if you're still confused at what you want to do even after you graduate, that's fine too. Because for like the first, I don't know, like 15 years of our lives, we're just put into school to do schoolwork. So if you want to test out what you want to do in life, then you should use that time, use the different opportunities that you're given, and try new things. Like, yeah, I really like trying a lot of new things at UCLA because that led me to like learning about new experiences and learning about potential like job careers that I could be doing. But yeah, that's a little spiel about me. And Sarah, if you want me to add more, let me know.
I love that so much, Kayla. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you if you're okay with it, a couple follow-up questions. In part
yeah.
because I know you. So, okay. So my first follow-up question is, do you feel like something I heard in what you were saying is like this idea, and I feel like I hear this a lot from UCLA students, especially like their first year as they're starting, that they feel like, I hear two things. They feel like everyone around them knows exactly what they want to do. That really, I'm right. Okay, two. And then two, that they feel that own pressure for themselves, that they have to have it all figured out. Did you feel, you're nodding, so I'm assuming that's a yes. Did you feel those ways? And like, what advice would you give to your first quarter self to moving through that?
Yeah,
It's a
so
normal feeling.
I definitely felt that. And the crazy thing is, now that I graduated, I forgot that I did have that feeling in the beginning because I felt it, and then I learned kind of how to tell myself like everyone's feeling this way, and then I realized everyone was feeling that way, so then I felt more comfortable and like relaxed. But in my first quarter, I was so stressed because every person in poli sci was saying that they had their plan figured out already, about how like they wanted to do X, Y, and Z so they could be like this person, as in they knew exactly which career they already wanted to go into. Whereas I was very confused because like poli sci is a very broad major, in my opinion. You could do a lot of different things. Like the only, I guess, role model I had was working in like local government. I worked at City Hall back in SF, and that's when I first learned about like legislative aides and like supervisors. So that was kind of like my idea of what I could do. But everyone wanted to be a lawyer, and I didn't have that kind of role model to see that it was possible to be a lawyer. But because everyone wanted to do that, I thought I wanted to do that too. Because I was like, okay, this seems like the normal path. Am I the one like walking astray? And then I talked to other
so
people.
Relatable though, honestly. Like I've felt that exact. I mean, I literally went to grad school for that. That's a true story for another day.
Yeah, so I was just very confused because I didn't know myself, which it's fine. Like you don't have to know yourself at this time. But no one says that it's fine, that you don't have to figure it out. So then for me, it just took a lot of me asking other people like, hey, do you feel this way? Because I don't know what's going on, but it seems like everyone else does. And I started realizing that. And actually, I want to give like a small plug to the Transfer Student Center's mentor mentee program, because after that first fall quarter, that's when I started talking to my mentor more. I loved him. He made my first year like just really great. But that's my experience. I know everyone has different experiences, but he really helped me because he he kind of like went about it nonchalantly, saying like, oh yeah, like everyone's kind of like that, but it's fine. Like no one really knows what they're doing. Everyone's faking it till they make it. Some people are just faking it a little bit better. And I was just like, okay, hearing that from like someone who went through this process already, and also is now a senior about to graduate, they have like kind of like the future mindset because I'm gonna be them in the future.
You are
So
them now.
yeah, so like I've made it, so I made it past that little hurdle, and you just need to realize that it's just a feeling that we do get, but you don't have to like compare yourself constantly to other people, because one is what they're doing really what you want to do, and also um like everyone can change their mind at the end. So like maybe you want to compare because you want to be like following a similar pathway, but like sometimes the other person could do a 180 and do something completely different. And yeah, it's just life is unknown until you go through it.
Kind of makes me think about how like I know there's one clothing brand in particular. This is going to seem unrelated. People, there's always like clothing that are like one size fits all. We all know that that's like actually not true at all. And the same is true of like life plans, or even like within your major. People could be going for completely different things, but with the same major, but that's actually can be a really good thing. I have a follow-up question for you as well. It's like you talked a little bit about your mentor, but were there other like moments, or, and it's okay if the answer is no, but I suspect the answer is yes. Were there other like little moments or like connections you made at UCLA? Could be in your first year, could be even as you were graduating, that made you feel like you belonged, like UCLA was like a home for you, and that you were in like community with other people.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I felt this more my second year, because that's when I was in person. During the first year, I did make a few friends, but um, like honestly, you can't always tell the vibes over Zoom. You need to do like the in-person vibe check. So when we went back in person, that's when I really like started talking to the friends I made over Zoom more, and seeing like how our perspectives aligned. And um, like this was I guess like the first time that I saw a lot of these people and hung out with them a lot. And we met over student government, which is called USAC, which is the Undergraduate Student Associated Council. We all worked in the Transfer Student Representative's office. And even though we were in that office, like that office did bring us together, but we weren't that office. Like I am still talking to the friends that I made who were like participating in student government. And we still continue to talk and hang out, because we found out that our lives are just very similar. We have very similar upbringings. We have similar perspectives on education or on life. We have similar music tastes. Like we have a lot of similarities beyond just the organization we were a part of. And that goes the same with my work too. One of like my best friends I met at work, and it felt so organic just talking to her. And I think everyone should try and join like different things. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you just don't know who you're going to meet, because you might meet someone and it could just be one person who has the same like beliefs and ideas as you, perspectives, outlook on life, and that one person can really just make your experience so much better, like as a transfer and at UCLA. So like yeah, beyond just the mentor program and also student government at my job, like all of these things, they did bring different people together. But I got to talk with all these different people and really feel out like who I wanted in my life and how similar our lives have been.
I love that so much. Thank you very much. It's so funny hearing you like talk about it because like you're so highly involved that like, but I think it's positive. Like I'm just telling you all here, spoiler alert, the part two, there's something that's very much connected to something that Kayla just said, which is like, when I think about getting involved, you kind of never know where you're going to find that person. Like describing like meeting like your coworker and it just being so organic. And I think that sometimes people expect it to always be in like someone who's their same major or someone who's in this club. But I think that if you put yourself out there in more than one space, you're more likely to find that person, but it's not always where you're expecting. That sounds really indirect. Are you open to taking one or two questions from folks in the house?
Yeah, of course.
I think we have time for one or two questions. If anyone has one, you can drop it on the chat, or if you want, you can raise hand and ask yourself. No pressure, just putting it out there. I'm still giggling in my head over like the vibes on Zoom are sometimes not the vibes in person. I feel like last fall was just perpetual vibe check. Okay, were you part of the transfer mentee program?
Yes, I was. So I was both a mentee and a mentor. So in my first year, so my first year as a transfer, I was a mentee, and I loved my mentor so much that I wanted to come back as a mentor. So in my second year, so my senior year, I was a mentor.
Love, and I know for a fact you are a wonderful mentor. I will say, like, we are currently in the process of finishing and then sending out those matches. So people who have already signed up, we've either already matched you and you just don't know it yet, or we're wrapping them up right now. When we get down to, and I say this is a compliment because I love an unusual major, when we get down to some of the like fiddly like majors that are less common, we have to do some like finessing. And so if you're already in there, you should be finding out who your mentor is. Like I would say we will notify the mentors in the next like week. The goal is to send them out before the first day of class. And then the second, and then your mentor typically will reach out to you and like say like, hey, I'm your mentor. The part two of that is if you haven't signed up yet, the link is still open. We have to like stop at one point and just like match all those people. And then what we'll do is we'll sort of like do essentially like a vibe check to say like, do we have space to match it to more people if they're interested? And then at that point, the answer has been yes in the last couple of years. So we will do that too. So don't hesitate to sign up if you haven't already, because we'll do our absolute best to match you. One more question is, do you feel like you had both a different experience being on Zoom than being on campus?
Okay. Yes, I definitely had a different experience. I feel like my experience was very unique. Like everyone's experience during like my year, I feel like was very individualized because we all chose to do different things during that first year online. But I still decided to move down to LA because I had that in my plan. Like I was going to move out of my house because I worked to transfer, and I worked to transfer to UCLA specifically. So I wanted to be at least in the same city. But because of all the changes with COVID and all the changes happening to the university, I did lose my housing offer, but my friend was lucky enough to have an open space at her apartment. So I lived with her, and she went to the other school too. So I was living near the other school and going to UCLA online. So it was very interesting, but I really learned new study habits during this time because I couldn't really like slack off, even though everything was online. It was still a new institution, a new system that I had to learn. So I had to figure out how to read faster than I usually read. That might sound scary, but hopefully you all will get the hang of it if you have like a reading intensive major. But yeah, I learned how to properly skim readings and take key concepts, and also just how to write more concisely. So I was really like testing myself and adapting to this new environment. But at the same time, I didn't move to LA for nothing. So I really wanted to see the city safely, because at this time it was still like COVID. And I think like the first round of vaccines were just out. So everything was opening up slowly, and I still wanted to be as safe as possible because my family is high risk. So I didn't want to spread anything back to them. But I wanted to see the city more. So I did more like LA exploring with my roommates and myself. And I also just tried to enjoy that I was living in LA for a minute. But then when everything was in person during my second year, I really like made sure that I didn't take the city for granted, because one thing that I love is the beaches or just water in general. And you cannot go into the water in SF, like you'll get hypothermia. So I really wanted to enjoy like the sun and just everything here. But because of that, I put my academic side a little bit on the back burner. Like I didn't take out the flame or anything. I was just saying it's okay if I'm not like studious 24/7. Like I could have fun because I missed out a large chunk of my time here. So it was like a very different transition, because going from just completely online, learning how to study in that format, and also balancing social life in that format was a little bit easier because everything was at my own schedule and at my own time. But when everything's in person, that was a new transition that I had to adapt to, because not only was I on campus for the first time, like before my senior year, I never stepped on campus. Maybe like a handful of times. And that was only like at Royce and Powell. I didn't even know my classrooms were, what the buildings were called. So I'm so thankful for my work, because we had to give tours and we had to know these buildings. So because of my work, I knew where my classes were. But yeah, it was definitely a new transition, because I didn't take into account like travel time between classes. If I bumped into someone, that was really new to me, because we all have like this pent up excitement, everyone during my senior year, because it was everyone's first time back in person. So when we see someone that we met online in person, we get extra excited. And then that takes away like my travel time to go to my next class. So it was just like something new to figure out. But during my senior year, I definitely focused a little less on academics and more on the social aspect of my life as a student, because I wanted to change the like balance beam a little bit. It was still balanced to me, but in like a regular person's eyes, it might seem imbalanced or unbalanced. But it's to each their own of how you want to juggle everything.
Thank you so much. That was some really excellent advice. And I assure you that as you're coming to campus, you will learn where your classes are, I promise. I think it's intimidating like the first day or two, and then it'll just be like second nature in no time at all. I want to take a second. I'm going to put it on gallery view. So, I always have to remember to remove spotlights and stuff. So I want to just take a second to thank Kayla so much for joining us. It's really helpful to hear from like a recent alumni who's able to, you know, like I said to Kayla right before we started, I was like, you know what, like you really obviously have made it through like your UCLA experience, you're out on the other side. And so I hope it's like helpful and supportive to like hear from someone who recently graduated to see that like you can have those doubts, you can have those feelings, you can change your path and still graduate and be highly successful like Kayla. And so I just want to thank you again, Kayla, and like you've given so much to the transfer community here at UCLA, and so we just really appreciate you. And we see so much good work come out of your involvement. So thank you so very much. And then Kayla, you're welcome to hang out for part 2 or sign up. I know you have like things I'm sure you want to do. So totally up to you, but we are going to switch gears. So I see the note about mentor. I'm just going to do another quick plug. There's lots of questions about mentors and mentees. We have over 300 mentees we're matching with over 100 mentors. So we're in the final process of doing those matches, and then they're going to get released within the week. So don't worry, if the application went through, we definitely have it and we're matching you in real time. So we're super excited. And then if you haven't applied previously, we will absolutely match as many people as possible. So don't hesitate to apply now. It might take us another couple weeks and we might match you like a few weeks into the quarter, but we can definitely make that happen. Okay, so we are going to switch gears. I'm going to share screen, and then I'm always like, as long as I've been on Zoom, I am forever still learning how to share screen. I don't know what that's about. Okay, so as mentioned before, we are going to we're going to be talking life outside of the classroom, imposter syndrome, and building a sense of community at UCLA. We've taken different approaches, to be completely honest, in the past about like how we've approached this session. Okay, perfect. So we've invited student orgs in the past. We've done some different things, but we felt like during Welcome Week, which is next week, you're going to get opportunities to meet a lot of like student orgs and things like that. So we wanted to focus on some things that we don't think you're going to get to necessarily see during Welcome Week. So this is our agenda for what we're going to go through in the next about like 40 minutes-ish, and then we'll have some time for questions. But we wanted to start with like, what is imposter syndrome? I feel like it's very buzzwordy. And then we're going to talk about like actual strategies that are that have been backed by like research and science to combat those feelings of imposter syndrome that you may be able to implement. I will say, acknowledging up front, what works for one person may not work for everyone. So we came up with a couple different strategies that we know folks use. And then a couple of recommendations for finding your space on UCLA's campus. So I'm going to start with a video, and I'm going to pause the recording because I feel very confident that this will be the thing that, hold on, that this will be the thing that gets the, so this imposter syndrome can be an incredibly common experience for folks at UCLA, in higher education, and even honestly, not to frighten you, but after graduating, like the feelings don't necessarily go away at a magical moment in time, but there are specific things that you can do in order to like work through those feelings or to make sense of them and kind of like move into your own power, so to speak. And so wanted to get into some specifics. I also have a person in the house I asked from our team. He also helped plan this week for y'all, Ignacio. I'm not going to embarrass Ignacio, but I am going to say that when I talked to him about this, he was like, yes, I felt this and all this kind of stuff. Like, I know Ignacio, like all of you, is a highly talented person who has many, many accomplishments. But do you have an example you want to share with us as a student at UCLA, like a time or an experience you had where you felt imposter syndrome and maybe like what you did to work through it?
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Ignacio Ochoa. I use he, him pronouns, and I recently graduated this past spring with my degree in sociology, and I was the mentorship program coordinator this past year at the TSC. For me, so I entered in fall of 2020, so it was in the middle, or yeah, fall 2020, so it was in the middle of the pandemic. And I think the first time I experienced like severe imposter syndrome was literally that very first quarter. Because everything was online. I had also, similar to Kayla, I had also moved to, I'm originally from the Central Valley, I'm from Modesto, California. And so I had moved to LA and I was in my apartment on my own and stuff. And literally, one of the first classes I took at UCLA was this seminar style class with only about 12 people in there. And this like really highly qualified and amazing professor who had like all this academia that he had written and was just really talented. And I remember like being excited about the class, but also when he kind of introduced all the work that we had to do in there. And then we started having some conversations in class. Like he told us that he was going to ask each of us to at least comment once throughout the class. That's something pretty common in seminar classes at UCLA. And the way that I would hear all of my other peers talking, and it just felt like as they were speaking, it just felt like everyone was so like well articulated. Everyone was so just prepared. And even though I had done the work and I had like prepared before classes and stuff, there was multiple times during that class. It was probably one of the most challenging times during a class for me. There was like multiple times where like right after class, I would just break down, or sometimes I would just have to like take a moment to kind of get myself together. There's times where that's when I started experiencing a lot of symptoms of like anxiety and like getting like anxiety attacks after class, mainly because I was just so hard on myself and thinking that everyone around you is doing so much better. Look at how these people are speaking. Look at how these students, like this comment that this person made about this reading, like you didn't think of that. Why didn't you think of that? Like all of these little questions that I just kept like, I don't know, nagging myself with, or just kept, like they just kind of kept sticking to me. And like that was, like I said, one of the most challenging experiences. But as I got through the quarter and being able using office hours to support me in the class and talking to my professor, it was also one of the most rewarding experiences I had, because it really helped me grow. Like I said, the class wasn't easy itself, and so I just realized how the only, like I was there for a reason. And I was, something that resonated with me from the video was when they said that the idea that you think that somebody accidentally admitted you into the university, that's something I 100% thought, because I was like, there's no way I could have gotten admitted here, all these things. But as I got through the class and everything, and after speaking to my professor, and I got a pretty good grade in the class, my professor really liked my essay and stuff. And I just realized that I went through all of this. I was in my head this entire time, and I still succeeded, and I still succeeded on top, and I was able to, thrive and stuff. And so it just was really reassuring to me after that I definitely belonged here, and that I was definitely able to succeed in these classes. So I guess some of the strategies that I use, because that, this was just one class, but I promise you, like that wasn't the only time I experienced imposter syndrome, and it wasn't the only time that it hasn't come back, but that was just one of the most prominent examples that I can think of. And some of the, I guess, strategies that I used to kind of combat that and to kind of get myself through it was just talking about it to folks, to my support system. I found a home in the Transfer Student Center, and, my coworkers and Sarah have been like an amazing just resource, and just someone to speak to and someone to talk to about these experiences. I'm also a first generation college student. And so talking to other folks who have come from similar experiences has been really helpful as well, because you realize that you're not alone in these experiences. But also you just realize, you like think of what you kind of bond through the trauma. And it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like helpful, because you both talk about how, you're both struggling in these ways and these other ways. Sometimes you make jokes about it, and then I don't know, in a way that kind of is comforting to just be able to bond with other folks about these things. So that's, like, I would say, just talking to other folks and building a support system and finding a community on campus was really important to me. But also I started using CAPS, which is Counseling and Psychological Services on campus. I started using that during my second year, so last year, because I just realized that there were some points where, you know, my own anxiety was kind of getting elevated at some periods of the year compared to others. And I started noticing that it was really affecting me and my schoolwork. And I really didn't want to, I wanted to do everything possible to try to help myself. And so that's when I made the decision to use CAPS. And I've talked about imposter syndrome in those therapy sessions and all. And honestly, that's been so, so helpful, especially because when you go through the counseling process, they ask you if you have any preferences as far as like who you would like to be seen by. And I asked to be seen by a Latinx professional, mainly because they also understand my experience coming from a Latinx background and you know, going through these experiences. So I would say more than anything is just those two things: is know when you need to seek help and know when you need to kind of reach out to others. Like I said, as a first gen student or as a first gen person, like I think that it's really hard for me to reach out, but I'm really happy that I did, because it really helped my own mental health, and it helped me just be able to be my best self and go through my these past 2 years of college and just be really happy and be able to just enjoy it to the best of my ability. So yeah, that was a really long-winded answer, but yeah,
that was wonderful. Like, honestly, I feel like I was teasing Ignacio before. I was like, I'm bringing you in as a plant. Can you share an example? And I did not show him the whole presentation, but you actually referenced multiple things that are in here. So thank you so much. If you can relate to that or connect to that, please thank Ignacio or message in the chat what parts like stood out to you. That was really, I really appreciate your honesty and candid sharing of like what that experience was like for you. And I know that like it's definitely relatable for me, even though I haven't been an undergrad in a hot second. And so connected to that, we're gonna go to the next part, which is something very much echoed by like Kayla, Ignacio, video. We will all probably at some point, I guess there are probably some people that never feel this way. I would love to see a study about those people, because I do think that it is a simultaneously like very isolating experience to feel like these feelings of imposter syndrome. And at the same time, it's something that we know that pretty much almost everyone faces at some point in time. So maybe you don't feel it now, but maybe you might experience it at another point in time or in a different context. And so I share that because I think that can be empowering to reach out for help or talk to a friend or talk to someone from back home. If you are feeling those kinds of ways, and I think that we all have like, our go-to folks, and I hope that you all have the experience at UCLA where you meet some more go-to folks to sort of add to your support system along the way. The second thing is voicing those feelings and taking care of yourself. And finally, finding community can really help you move through those feelings in a way that can be manageable. Like I said, Ignacio like massively teed me up for this slide and some of the other ones, so thank you again. And then you belong here. I say with 100% confidence that everyone here, everyone who's been admitted, all of our transfer student community, you're here for a reason. You've worked hard to be here. And you absolutely deserve to be at UCLA. You deserve your space here. You deserve your academic achievements and accolades. And this is a space for you. And so when you get in your head and you're starting to feel those ways like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here, just remember, like, you were admitted for a reason. And now that you're here at UCLA, UCLA has the obligation, and I do think that as someone who works on campus, like UCLA takes that obligation pretty seriously to make sure that you feel supported during your time at UCLA. What that looks like is very different from person to person, but some ways that you can explore that and really find those things for yourself is to really utilize campus resources. I feel like it was like a sub theme from Monday, like you pay student fees and your student fees support all of these things that we're sharing today. And so going to college isn't just going to class. It's also the experience outside of class, the resources you have access to while you're in class to help you feel like your most successful self. And so just know that being here means that you do already belong and you've been chosen. That sounds really mystical. It's not supposed to, but you do belong here. So these are going to be some extremely specific tips. And I'm going to totally throw myself right under the bus and say that I personally do the one that is the most potentially embarrassing, like low-key embarrassing in this photo. But put together a few like specific strategies that are backed by like neuroscience research and like mindfulness folks that are things that you can actually do when you find yourself thinking like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can participate in the discussion section. I'm not sure if I can put myself out there and go to that first club meeting, whatever it is. So this is more info than I usually like to put on a single slide, but I'm going to talk through each of these. So when you have that sneaking suspicion of imposter syndrome, here's some quick ideas. This one, y'all are lucky because most of you are off screen. So if you want to practice it right now, I invite you to, no one will know but yourself, and maybe if you have an animal or another person in your space. And so this one is like the cheesiest one, but I swear, at least for me, it works. And I'll also say, does anyone here watch Ted Lasso? Show Ted Lasso? If you do, if you watch Ted Lasso and you're a fan, power posing actually came up in season 2. They didn't call it that, but there's this great scene where one of the female leads, Rebecca, is giving advice on like how to get a good restaurant reservation. And they said like, how do you have so much confidence? And she said, before I go into a meeting, I make myself as big as possible so that I can take up space in the meeting. So power posing can look different. I would encourage you, if you want to try this, give it a Google, because there's different like stances that people use. The part I put underneath it is 100% true. When I'm super nervous, this is like maybe an embarrassing fact about me, but also true. If I'm nervous about something, I have a big meeting, I have a big presentation, or I'm just not so sure about like a conversation I have to have, experience, whatever, I will 100%, if I'm walking there, I will try to walk through a building that I know isn't super busy, and I'll take the elevator if possible, so that I can power pose in the elevator if I'm alone. And so the one that's on the previous slide, spoiler alert, is one of the like power pose dances, which is where you put your hands on your hip and you stand like Wonder Woman there, and you just sort of like puff your chest up. And if you do it for like 15, 20, 30 seconds, it's really supposed to make you feel like big and powerful and confident, because it like makes you have like open body language, and that you're making yourself kind of like big in the space. I know other people do like hands above their head and like stand and stretch out, almost like if you've ever heard like what to do if you run into a bear in the woods type of thing. I know some people will even like make like noises like, you know, type of thing. It was a really bad example. I just don't want to scream in my apartment. And so there's a couple different stances, but typically they are like open, big, like powerful, like body language. And I've also, embarrassing but true fact, done this in bathrooms. Like, so go into the bathroom and just stand in the stall for a second, just to kind of like, you know, feel that sense of like, I'm here, I'm in my body, I can like own my space and own my confidence. So that's one. And it doesn't take a lot of time. And theoretically, you can do it anywhere. I mean, obviously you can do it in public if you feel comfortable, but I oftentimes will like get there a little bit early, go into the bathroom, take the elevator or something like that, and do that for just a second. And it really does actually make me feel better. So if you want to practice it in the background right now, you're welcome to while you listen. A second one is listen to a favorite song. So to sort of just even have a song or two on deck that maybe you have saved in your phone or something like that. Music is a great way to pump yourself up, sort of like, I think about like my like theme song type of thing. But I was reading that especially songs with deep bass tend to have like a powerful ability to sort of pump us up in a way that can make us feel more confident when we're feeling a little bit like we're not good enough. Third one is picture your success. So think about like racing your way through, like what would happen if it all works out? And I'm not saying from like a lens of like toxic positivity, but a lot of times it's very easy for our brains to go down like, oh my gosh, this could go wrong, or I'm going to sound silly or whatever. But what if you don't? What's it going to look like when you're walking? So knowing you're in college right now, what's it going to look like or feel like when you're walking across the stage at graduation? If you can take a moment to picture that and think about your bigger goals, your bigger success you're striving for, that can kind of sometimes like mitigate those feelings of like you're here, you're working towards it, and you're going to get there one day. And sometimes that feeling can sort of pull people through. This is what's referred to as a helper's high is the next one, of doing something small that can help someone else. It could be on campus as simple as holding the door for someone, or another example I saw is like, you know, people sometimes will go to a coffee shop and they'll like pay it forward, like pay for the person in line behind them. But oftentimes it's something free, like, or even just like going out of your way to send a nice note to a friend that you know, like, could maybe use some encouragement as well. Oftentimes, like reaching out, being in community or connection with each other and being able to help someone else out, even in a tiny way, can give us like a boost of confidence and serotonin, releasing endorphins so that you feel better actually. And so think about some things that you might experience. And if you're someone that enjoys, I'm actually one of those people that loves volunteering. So one of the things I did during undergrad that I really loved is for like the whole time I was in undergrad, actually, I was a volunteer at a local dog shelter. And so it sort of actually combined this one and the last one, which is something fun. So like I couldn't have my dog with me when I was in college, and I really missed having a pet. So I would go walk dogs just like one day a week for 30 minutes. But it was so much fun. I felt like I was doing something helpful. It really helped me get out of my own head. And so for me, it was like a standing commitment. So that was something that like I think was both helpful and fun. The second to last one is also something that I do is like when I'm really nervous, and I actually did this yesterday, I got to present with our director, Karina, to the staff of academic advancement program on campus. And I just knew it was going to be a big crowd, and I was just a little bit nervous about like, oh, I've never gotten to present to this specific team before. And it was like a 45-minute presentation. And so when I'm nervous about something like that, or like giving a presentation for class type of thing, I will often dress in a way that makes me feel good. That is a totally like sliding scale, you know, depending on like what you feel like you look and feel your best in. But I also used to do this in college when I would have a big test. I would like dress up a little bit because it just sort of like feeling my best. And that might even just be as simple as like, for me, like putting on a favorite pair of earrings or a lipstick or like a favorite pair of sneakers, that type of thing. But when you look good and you feel comfortable, you tend to perform better and like sort of have more confidence going into a space. And then finally, do something fun and or playful. So there's a lot of interesting work being done right now about people's need to play and have like social fun kind of experiences. And so that for some people that might be like going to the gym or joining like an intramural team on campus where you play a game once a week. I know that there's definitely a community of people who do things like improv, a cappella singing, things like that, that sort of have like a built-in element of like play and fun to them. So it's really also relative, like what is fun to you. Maybe it's allowing or building in time every week to play your favorite video game. Personally, I'm playing Stardew Valley at this time, and I am really enjoying building my farm in a way that I did not expect. And so whatever it is for you, like intentionally building in time for that or making time for a break to do something fun will really help you like get back into your own body and in your own like best headspace. Before I actually, well, I can't use this, checking the chat really quick. And also, is there, if anyone else has other things that they like to do to make themselves kind of work through those feelings, feel free to drop them on the chat at any point in time. You are welcome to use it or direct message each other, anything like that throughout. But welcome any other suggestions or things that work really well for you. This one is like, I thought this one was such a bigger concept that I thought it deserved its own slide. But the concept of developing a growth mindset. Have people heard of this? My gut is yes. I feel like it's getting bigger, but there's two different sort of like mindsets that people tend to have. It's either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is a little bit more like fate determined, like this is the way things are, this is the way they'll always be. I can only like do what I'm destined for, and I may or may not be able to like improve rapidly. A growth mindset it's a more of a curiosity, trial and error, failure, rather than like this one on the top says, rather than something being a problem, it can be an opportunity. And so it opens up the way our brain's way of thinking into being more flexible and to viewing setbacks as like more of like an opportunity. And so this is actually a skill that has been studied and has been proven to be something you can develop in time. So if you feel like you're naturally someone that sees things as like pretty black and white, a lot of people do, and you're like, this is the right way forward, this is the path I have to take, I can't deviate from it. For like UCLA, it might be like, I have to get all A's in order to get into grad school, in order to get into med school so that I can be a doctor, and that's the plan, right? That's totally real and valid. And there are many people who move through the world with that kind of like approach. And honestly, I'm very confident it works for many people. That being said, in terms of combating imposter syndrome, it can be very beneficial to adopt a growth-based mindset and sort of like work towards cultivating it in time. And some of the ways that you can do that is practice failure. When something doesn't go right, seek that. It's always like, there's always that initial sting of like, I didn't get this opportunity, or this thing didn't work out the way I thought it would, or I hoped it would. But then to kind of like pick yourself back up and move forward, and either try again or to try a different approach. A lot of people also like really fear getting feedback. Like, you know, I think about like jobs and you get like an annual performance review or something like that. But that's also like, feedback can be a gift. It can help you move forward and become your best self. And so if you feel like you're hitting a wall, like at UCLA, both in or out of the classroom, maybe talking to a trusted friend, like, why do you think this isn't working out for me? Is there something I'm missing? And see if there's any opportunity for you to like work on something. I think it will be different for every person. And then the third recommendation is to build in time to reflect. If you, maybe that can be journaling, maybe that can be just, you know, you set aside 15 minutes to think through a recent failure or challenge you faced, and to think about how you might approach it differently the next time. These things can sort of build that muscle for you to like take things in stride a little bit more and see them more as like a lesson or an opportunity rather than like a capital S failure. So now I'm going to move into, I just want to check really quick if anyone wants to add anything or share anything connected to anything so far. I know we also have some folks in the house that work on our team that are current students or alumni. So you're also welcome to share if there's any of these that you've done that really helps. Okay. So I'm going to move on to talking UCLA specific items. So some spaces, resources, recommendations for things that will really help you maximize your time outside of classwork. So the first one mentioned before is clubs and organizations. My personal recommendation is when you're starting off at UCLA, I see students do two extremes often, and that is join absolutely everything under the sun outside of class and then be like, class what? That's real. And I think it's also valid. Like some people are just like really excited to be at UCLA and want to do all the things. That's totally understandable and cool. I also see people do the opposite. And I tend to hear from people that do the second one even more, which is they don't join anything, period. They're like, I'm going to take my whole first year to just do school. And then oftentimes where I'll run into someone and they'll be like, I just feel like I don't know anyone on campus, you know, except people I've had like a lab with or something. And I really want to meet some more people. And so oftentimes people will like kind of emerge like second half of their first year or in their senior year and be like, I really want to get involved now. my personal recommendation is to join 2 swings during your first year. It doesn't have to be right away. It could be like midway through your first quarter. But I would personally recommend joining something that is either of academic interest or professional interest. I'm going to use myself as an example in just a second. And then also something that is just for fun. And that's going to look really different for each person. But UCLA has over 1,000 student organizations, which is bananas and really overwhelming to think about. If you go on the UCLA SOL website, which stands for Student Organizations, Leadership and Experience Involvement. Involvement doesn't match the E, you know what I mean. Student orgs, leadership development type of stuff. Their website, you can search through all the student organizations, and even more specifically, next Tuesday during Welcome Week, there's this thing called the Enormous Activities Fair. It's outside, so dress in a way that you're going to feel comfortable being outside. Bring a hat, wear sunscreen, bring a water bottle, all of that. But you can walk around and get to meet people who are in all these different orgs, fraternities, sororities, professional organizations, you name it, that you can get involved in. So for me, in undergrad, I was an ecology and environmental studies major. And so I was in the conservation biology and Society of Wetland Scientists organization at my undergrad. And then I was also in the ballroom dance club. And so I would go to like professional, air quote, professional meetings for my club. Sometimes there would be faculty members there that would talk about their research and we would connect with. We also had conferences like regionally that we would go to and talk about science stuff. And then part 2, I was in ballroom dance. And so they would host regular like dance nights. I knew a bunch of people that were in all different majors as me. And it was just really fun to get to go. I was in dance growing up, and I learned about like how to ballroom dance in college. And so it was just like a really fun way to like blow off steam outside of school. So that's my example. Oh, thank you so much. For the SOL link. If you can't attend enormous activities fair, you can also just use the contact information for the clubs on the website. Honestly, most clubs are most like organizations and offices at UCLA are heavily preferencing Instagram now. Finally moving away from Facebook being the norm at UCLA. And so I would reach out to them on social media, follow them. They'll post like, hey, we're having an event. And they'll often share that it's public or open to anyone. Just as awkward as it can be, just show up to the first one, go out of your way to say hello to a couple of people, maybe even tell someone like, this is my first time coming. And you'll be surprised how like friendly people typically are. So going into some offices, I try to keep this list short because there's so many offices and opportunities at UCLA, but these are the ones that are most connected to like, I think, belonging at UCLA. And so a personal favorite of mine is the RISE Center. RISE, even their website is incredible. So if you're a commuter and you're like, I don't think I'm going to go there in person, there's so many things you can access on their website without ever going in person. But they are kind of like a proactive, holistic wellness hub. They're connected to CAPS, which is, spoiler alert, the next one. But they're more about like proactive wellness kind of like work. My personal favorite thing is they have a gigantic playlist on their website that is completely free and open of like mindful meditations and like reflective type activities that you can do on your own. They also host events, so they would be a great follow on social media if this speaks to you. And they host like workshops and events. Some are on Zoom, some are in person, just to like really explore like resilience and like wellness. And on the next slide, I have to give you a sense of their vibe. These were their first series of posters that they used to advertise their services. So this is very much their vibe, like cozy, welcoming, mindful-oriented, belongingness-based. And so I would definitely highly recommend checking them out and definitely listening to some of their meditations on the website. There's like 2 or 3 different like mindful meditation spaces on campus. And so if that's something that you enjoy, there's multiple like offices and spaces that host mindfulness work at UCLA. There's even a whole mindfulness research network. And so honestly, if you Googled mindfulness UCLA, you would find all of those different opportunities quite easily. But And fun fact, I have some of these up in my office because they're so beautiful, and they had to work with a student artist to make all these designs. The next one is TAP, and this is the one that I was laughing like, Ignacio, you totally teed me up for this, so thank you so much. The Counseling Center at UCLA is part of your student fee. Can't recommend them highly enough. They have so many counselors, and they have like counselors with all different backgrounds. I really appreciate that you also shared that you requested someone of a similar like ethnic background to you, because that is something that they can try to accommodate if possible. It's not a guarantee, but they will sort of do their best. And I think that like, even if you do not have your insurance through campus, you're able to get up to 3 sessions for free as a student. They also have a 24-hour crisis hotline that is on the back of all Bruin cards that you can call anytime, day or night, and talk to someone on the spot if you're having an emergency. But the other thing I want to plug is that they not only have one-on-one counseling, but they have group counseling too. And for example, one of their groups is called Coping with the Quarter, and they just basically meet as a group, all students, and talk about the pacing of the quarter system, their stresses, things that are working well for them, that kind of thing. So I know sometimes people are like nervous or intimidated by individual counseling, but they might actually find it really helpful to be in a group setting, talking about some of their how they're feeling on campus with other people. I use this photo on purpose, not because it's like the coolest, sexiest photo ever, but it is the actual entrance of CAP. It's on the back side of the wooden building near the practice field. And I will say that they're sort of like tucked to the side. They're simultaneously extremely central between parking lots 4 and 7. They're really close to Poly Pavilion. They're literally in the Wooden Center, but you go in a different entrance of the Wooden Center. And so this is what their door looks like. You can see the Counseling Center thing. I do think they have a link on their website where you can see a video of like how to get into the Counseling Center. But if you're going to go in person, worth looking up because it's in a funny location if you've never been there before. Oh, I feel like I skipped one. I keep skipping ahead. Okay, the last one I'm going to plug, and it's fully a shameless plug, but I just want to like speak to it. I mean, Ignacio also teed me up for this, but the Transfer Student Center, part of our goal is really to be like a connector and a space for transfer students on campus. I always tell folks that one of our #1 assets as the Transfer Center is that we have a physical space on campus in this building, Kirchhoff Hall, very centrally located, that students can come to spend time in, and you reasonably know that the other people who are there are also transfer students. And so if you feel any kind of imposter syndrome around your identity as a transfer, because it is an invisible identity, like walking around campus, you are not going to be able to tell that someone's a transfer or not. I guess unless maybe you met them here or during Welcome Week, or they've got their like I Heart Transfer shirt on or something like that. But when you're in the Transfer Center, you know that other people are transfers, and that you can sort of like, that they're going to get it is the part. Also, our entire student staff are current transfer students. And so we really try to be a space that you can come and ask questions to. There really are no stupid questions. We're often not the space that people are asking us questions about, but we will actively get you to the correct office or resource. We have maps, we've got all this kind of stuff. We also have free coffee and tea. So if you need a place to like hang out on campus, this is exactly what we're here for. And so that is my shameless plug for the Transfer Center. There are also so many other spaces on campus, like it would be next to impossible of me to make an exhaustive list. And so like, I would just consider, as you walk around campus, as you find your first classes, like what spaces do you feel really good in? What spaces inspire you? Which spaces make you feel seen and appreciated when you go into them? And spend more time there. For some people, it's the library. I'm a big fan of the library. For other people, it's the Rise Center. For some people, it might be the lounge in their academic building outside the dean's office or something like that. You just kind of never know. But don't like pigeonhole yourself when you notice that feeling of like, wow, I like being here. I like this group of people. I like my coworkers, like Kayla said earlier. You never know where you're going to find it. And so when you find it, don't shy away from it. Like, you belong, and you probably are experiencing that feeling of hominess for a reason. And so I just wanted to open it up to any questions or reflections from the group. We have just like 5 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing screen. I'm also going to stop recording. So if you don't want that. So folks watching, thank you for watching.